Aloha, it's Creative Name to Stand Out again with another battle report. So, the Labor Day holiday has just passed by, and I had a 4-day weekend. And so I called a friend up, and I asked, do you want to play a game? He said, sure. He wanted to play 6,000 points of Skaven. I only had 4,500 if I stretched it with Dark Elves. So he let me borrow some Night Goblins. I made an army with it, and here's the game. I hope you enjoy it. Because this was such a big game, I did not want to verbally explain because I thought it'd be kind of tedious where each unit was and where all the characters were within each unit. So I went ahead and I labeled all my pictures. So if you want to pause at your own pace to see where all the units were located, I provide you the ability to do that. Right now, though, I'm going to go ahead and explain from my perspective what it appears my opponent is doing to me and how I'm just going to explain that part first. So on the left flank, you have the two Doom Whales and three Abominations, and uh, and then they're backed up by the Plague Monk unit that you can see. And I feel like these five units are a very good, are the only way you can really simulate a kind of blitzkrieg attack within the Warhammer rules. They're very fast. They You can't react to them, and they hit hard, and they're very tough to kill. So it's very good. It's like it's kind of the shock and awe strategy. So if my left flank does not deal with this blitzkrieg, I'll say, then they're going to be able to crush my left and then turn straight into my center, and then my whole battle line is going to collapse. So I need to really effectively deal with this, and it's going to be interesting. And then so the center here, he has the bulk of his army, a lot of his infantry, his leadership bubble, and various chaff units and weapons teams. And their mission is going to be moving up forward to the center because that's where one of our objectives are. I'll explain more about the objectives, but that's what the center's strategy looks like it's about to be. And then on the far right side, you're already focused on two objectives, so he kind of puts his token force out there. He's going to try to delay my right flank from helping my center, and so he puts various units over there to deal with whatever I have on the right. So this is what his setup looks like, and so let's go into my setup. So here's my left flank. It's the flank that's facing all those Abominations and Doom Wheels. It's kind of lightly defended. We did deployment where we just rolled the dice, and if you won the roll, you got to choose to either deploy first or deploy second. If you deployed first, you were guaranteed the first turn. No stealing the initiative. If you deployed second, you had the benefit of responding to your opponent's deployment. So my opponent, he won the roll. He decided he wanted to deploy second. I would get first turn. So he really used he really took that to advantage. He put all of that heavy hitting stuff and put it on my weakest flank. As far as my deployment was concerned, as I was setting up, I kind of already had an idea what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to do sort of like a Roman Legionnaires with barbarian auxiliaries theme to my deployment. So my Dark Elves would be the Romans, and they would be dead center in spear column formation, and then my barbarian auxiliaries, the Night Goblins, would be a screening force in front of them. And I would just run the goblins forward, engage things first, kind of recklessly, if because I mean they have the fanatics in them, and they just they're worthless. And then I had the squig hoppers in front of the barbarians, the night goblins, whatever, and they would be there to kind of clear out chaff. I didn't want weapons teams or warlock engineers or any other chaff kind of running in front of my blocks and kind of just causing me to have to charge them, expose my flanks. So my squig hoppers would try to take care of that, along with the mangler. So that's how I set up. Um, so as far as the mission is concerned, we didn't want to do victory points because we thought that would be tedious. At the end of the game, it's going to be hours. This game is going to be very long. And so I came up with a way to maybe make it easier. We each nominated. At first, I wanted to do banners, but it became apparent that our banners were we were kind of off. So we picked 11 banners and characters, and those would each be worth 1 point. And I'll bring them up here, right here. And so in including all these characters and banners, there was other ways you could score points. And there was 3 pieces of terrain, and the object would be to try to control those pieces of terrain. You had a forest, which was a blood forest. You had a cardboard box, which was impassable terrain. We could just pretend it was like a pedestal for a statue with a flaming barricade fence around it. And then we also had a swamp, which was the regenerative one. I don't remember what that's called. And each of those would be with 1 point. So if you controlled them, you'd gain 1 point. And then finally, if you got 1 unit into your enemy's deployment zone, that would be another point. So there's a total of 15 points, and that would just make calculating who won at the end of the game faster and just more convenient rather than sitting down and be like, okay, this is this many points. So let's jump into turn 1. Here's an overlook of the board, and let's go into turn 1. Turn 1, no charges. I just lurch everything forward. I was using my giant over there on my left flank. I thought I was being clever. I was going to use him as a counter to any gutter runners that try to ambush me, but that is stupid. He's not going to stop that from happening, and he'll probably die to gutter runners. They have poison attacks. So everything moves forward. I cast Flame Sword of Ruin on my Goblins because they're at the forefront. If an abomination is going to hit anything, it will be them. And then I cast Flame Cage on his Storm Vermin because I kind of want to start splitting up the army. I don't want it all to move in mass. My opponent's turn starts out a little out of control. His Riot Ogres fail their Frenzy check and charge 16 inches into my Night Goblins. And that triggers some Fanatics, which do a little bit of damage before he goes in. And then the Abomination on the other side of the table moves forward and engages my Squig Hoppers, which also trigger Fanatics, but there's nowhere for them to hit, so they're just in the way for future movement. Here's some pictures of his movement on the left flank, all the fast-moving random movement. And then here is the center and right flank, and you can see that the Storm Vermin are actually, like I had planned, a little bit behind the rest of his army because of that spell. He moved his BSB out of that small bunker unit to be near the 2 larger units. And then the Doom Wheel is forced to move towards my knights. So that's just going to set up a really good charge because he's not too far away from his own slaves. Random picture of a Squig Hopper. Not a whole lot of exciting things. Doom Wheel has priced some slaves. I took a picture of his Scream Bell because it looked really nice. And his Warp Lightning Cannon explodes, which is, always great news. Over here, my War Boss with the Fencing Blades gets in a challenge with his Rat Ogre champion. He has a hard time hitting me. He does 1 wound. I then kill his champion. He wrecks my face. I kill another one of his Rat Ogres. I stay. I don't break. And then over here, the Abomination runs through the Squig Hoppers, but falls short from getting into my Crossbowmen. At this early stage in the game, things are looking very well for me. My Fanatics and the spell I cast have staggered his units, so his mass infantry can't support his heavy-hitting units. And the Doom Wheel being where it is right now is going to allow my Cold Ones to have a chain reaction charge into his slaves and help me collapse that right flank. So just need to continue moving forward in the center, and things are going to plan. So I set my plan to action. I send my Cold One Knights into the Doom Wheel, start that chain reaction. My witches need to get in the flank of that other abomination, so I have to charge my Night Goblins forward into the other abomination. Hopefully they stick, and then here are the witches into the flank of the abomination. I just hope I can get some flaming attacks on them, which you can already see on that I got them on there. My final charge of the phase is my giant. He's in such a bad position. He's going against things that are going to kill him really easily, and if I leave him where he is, he's going to get shot by the rattling snipers that are in the back. That's how he has 1 wound already. So the Doom Wheel's in range. I've faced Doom Wheels before. If I can charge it, maybe I can get enough combat res to break it, and I can at least kill 1 thing before I go down to the other Doom Wheel or an abomination that's in the background. I go into random movement, my Mangler Squid, I let him go through the combat with the Night Goblins and the Rat Ogres, and it hurts my Night Goblins, but as you can see here, more importantly, it just devastates the Rat Ogres. I'm using my other hoppers, hopefully to engage those weapon teams, but I fall short on both of them. I have the big boss on the Great Cave Squig, and I have the little Night Goblin unit. And they just both fall short of getting into contact with that weapons team. So here's an overlook of the board on the left, and here's an overlook of the board on the right before I go into magic. So like I mentioned earlier, I got the Flaming Sword of Ruin off on the witches. That means that Abomination is most likely going to die. It doesn't get its regen save, I get poison attacks, and I got a lot of attacks coming. Then I get the glittering scales, the higher level version off, so there's a big bubble in the center of my lines that's getting a 2-point bonus to their saves. So now my guys are a little bit more resilient to any incoming fire. And then finally I get off the Curse of the Bad Moon template spell, the Magical Vortex, and it lands out in front of the Plague Monk unit. I think it hits the Abomination even. Alright, it does definitely hit it, but he makes his regen save. And so now if those Plague Monks want to join in, they're going to go through a couple of Fanatics and that template, so it's probably going to dissuade him from charging me. And then finally, not finally, I go into my shooting phase. I start with my Rock Lobber. At first I start with my Bolt Throwers. They miss. They miss almost every part of this game. That's why I don't bring them in my Dark Elf army. And then, so I use the Rock Lobber, I target the bell, and I don't hit the bell. I didn't realize it worked like this, but I don't hit the bell. I hit the Grey Seer, and he doesn't make his invulnerable save, and then I do 4 wounds, so his Grey Seer is down and out. So he doesn't have a level 4 anymore. He has a level 3 and a level 2. So that was good news for me. And then we go over to where my light shooting part, where my crossbows and my shades are, and I do 2 wounds, I think, to one of the Doom wheels, and it loses control and slams in the side of his slave unit. So that's pretty good too. I enjoy that. And we go into combat. My giant gets wounded twice by the Doom wheel. I headbutt the Doom wheel, so we draw because I charged. And then unfortunately, my Night Goblins. Oh, they did not stick. They have very low leadership, so even with a reroll, it was highly unlikely. So he overruns and he slams into my spearman. That was bound to happen. I wasn't expecting the Night Goblins to kill the Abomination, but I was kind of hoping that maybe it would be a turn later before my spearman had to engage with the Abomination. And what's worse is I'm only being I'm barely hit by them, so I don't even get a bunch of attacks in the turn I get hatred. So that's bad news. And then to piggyback on that, my goblins do beat the rat ogres. They flee and they run through my mangler squig, killing it. So that's unfortunate. But my Cola Knights do deliver. They punch through, and they're now on the slaves. And this is what the board looks like at the end of turn. You can see my witch elves did win, and they overran because I had frenzy. So, my opponent's only charge this turn is with the slaves here in the picture. They charge the side of my giant, and then in the random movement phase, the Doom Wheel that lost control last turn, it misfires and it kills itself. Meanwhile, he also has Gutter Runners that he's been holding in reserve, and they pop up. I had put a unit on top of their little token, and so I guess they immediately engage into combat. And so, yeah, so they're in combat with my level 4 and her little bunker unit. And then we go in the shooting phase, and his surviving Doom Wheel kills my giant. And my giant falls on the top of the Doom Wheel, and I think does 2 wounds to it, if I remember right. So, kind of sucks, but not too bad. And we go over here to the slaves combat. With my cold ones versus slaves, it's no contest. I kill a bunch of them. I think there's only 1 rank left. They explode. I don't take any casualties, and I run. I try to restrain myself, but I fail my leadership 10, and I continue forward and I go off the board. So that's unfortunate. That's really going to slow me down. I wanted to beat them, reform, and then attack that clan rat unit. But oh well. At least they're not going to get shot at. The combat continues, with the Abomination, or at least it starts for the first time. And I lose 7 guys, and then we reform. And then in the combat, I pop out my assassin. Kind of cool. I wish I could do animations or something, make a short little film, because I'm visualizing in my head, and it seems really cool. My ninja pops out from the spearmen, and I fight their little rat ninjas. And anyways, we kill a bunch of them. We only lose 1 spearman to the combat, and I break them, and I don't catch them, and they run through my lines. And that's where I end up. So looking at the board, it doesn't look too bad for me right now. I can stall out the center, and it looks like the flanks are going my way, even though the left flank is still giving me a little bit of trouble. I'm surprisingly doing okay over there. So the first charge I decided to declare was with my witches. when we were trying to figure out was my charge a flank charge or just a direct center charge. It ended up that my unit was perfectly divided in half. So my opponent was very sporting. He allowed me to have the flank. He had his own motives for that, but I still think it's very sporting of him to allow me to have that. And then I go on to other charges. I want to go ahead and charge my executioners into the bell unit and the remnants of that goblin horde I brought. I'm going to send into the same unit. So this is what it looked like after the charges were declared. What ended up happening was I first declared a charge of my executioners. My opponent held. I then declared a charge with my goblins. My goblins were on the right side. About 4 or 5 of them could be seen by his warp fire thrower, and so he declared a stand and shoot with it because weapon teams can declare that for their parent unit. They got hit. They lost all 5 of their goblins. I took a leadership and they broke. When that happened, they fleed and they went right through my Dark Riders. They passed the leadership check, but then they were free to declare a charge against the same unit. I declared the charge and they made it. It wasn't that hard actually. I've been behind that unit the whole time, waiting for an opportunity like this, and it just worked out. Of course, I thought the goblins would get into combat, lose everyone or get wiped out, flee, and then my Dark Riders come in. But if it happens now, that's good news for me. Meanwhile, my Colon Knights come back on the board. I angle them so that these clan rats can't get away from my charge angle. And then on the other side of the board, I move my shades and I reveal my other assassin. He has the Manbane poison with the Rending Stars. I think that's a pretty popular build. And their object right now is to finish off that Doom Wheel. It only has 2 wounds left. And if I take that down, then all that's left really on that side I have to worry about, besides the large block of Plague Monks who've been stalled by that magical vortex and their fear of fanatics, is all I have to really worry about. So, my assassin does exactly what I want him to do with his Shade's help and kill the Doom Wheel. My Hydra moves up and I shoot my flames. I haven't taken any wounds yet, so it's pure strength 5, and I kill 17 Plague Monks, so that gives me 43 more to go. My Squig Hoppers here, they finally make it to the weapons team. I think they overshot last turn, that's why they're not dead. And the Storm Vermin ranks are just too many, too long, so you can't make that charge against them in such a tight space. And then he did a good job. He did 2 wounds to my great Cave Squig War Boss, and then he angled the Clan Rats small unit, so I was forced to charge it. So chances are he's going to die because he doesn't have any real armor to speak of. And then finally here is just some random movement. My Harpies were in the way of my level 4's unit to move any further. I had to use my Harpies to charge the Gutter Runners out of the way so that the Executioners could make the charge against the Bell. And the Gutter Runners, they chose to flee. Sorry about that. And that caused my Harpies to fail charge, and they pretty much stayed where they were. So my Squig Hoppers win their fight. The Great Squig War Boss managed to live through his. The Witches wipe out all the slaves, and the Hell Pit Abomination fluffs his rolls, and I managed to do 2 more wounds to it. In the most important fight, I take 1 wound for my Executioners. Surprisingly, my horses live through everything. I kill all his little extra ranks on those extra movement trays that are back there behind the bell, and I put all but 1 wound. I do 5 wounds. I should say that more clearly. I did 5 wounds to the bell because the Death Sword with 1,000 attacks from Helbron is nasty. She's so good. I wish I could use her a lot more, but I don't generally use special characters. But if I do, I like her. She's awesome. If there was one negative thing to report all turn, it was that my Witches overran Boxcars and got into that abomination, and they got it at an angle. That's the bad part, is I only get, I think, 2 Witches in combat, so that's not good news. And hopefully he doesn't kill me in my turn and I break and he starts moving forward, because I hate when that happens. So we go into Skaven turn 3, right? Is this turn 3? I can't even remember. Whatever turn it is. And he charges the VSB. he wipes out the squighoppers. I'm not going to spoil that surprise. And then he charges with his storm vermin into my executioners. And he's only going to be able to get one guy in. He's just hoping that the ranks, I guess. He wants to get his special character in combat and do a little duel, which is going to be kind of cool. My squighopper guy dies. The abomination makes up for his fluffing from last turn. I have glittering scales and I have the 5+ ward on them. So last turn, not only did not roll too hot as far as like wounding me, I did manage to roll some 6s for armor saves and some invulnerable saves. So got lucky. And the witches managed to live. They had 1 rank at least, and they passed their break test. And I think I do 2 more wounds to it. So it's getting there. It's difficult, but it's getting there. And so after combat, I killed the bell. I killed the bell. I only have to do 1 more wound to it. Helbron accepts the challenge of Queek, the head taker, and she teaches him a thing or two about what it means to be good in the duel. He kind of sucks. No, I'm just kidding. I'm strength 10 with 7 attacks. That's what I rolled at least, and I'm faster than him. So he had no chance. He doesn't have an invulnerable save. So this causes whatever was left of his clan rats to break. My Dark Riders run them down. I reform. This is kind of a silly reform. I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, I could have done a lot better with it. But I thought I would go into horde formation to get more attacks, since I know I'm going to get flanked, and that BSB would probably get in even if I only did it like 5 across, because he can just say I'm going to charge the corner front. So I just thought more attacks on the VSB if he decides to come in with him. To round out the turn, he also charged my Hydra. He does 1 wound to it. I do 2 wounds to Skrulk, and I do a handful of casualties to the Plague Monks. Now that I'm looking at this, he should have charged me in the flank. We both missed that. I was so close to him. I guess it looks like we should. I mean, when we were playing, it's like, oh, this is a front charge. But now that I'm looking at it, it's definitely a flank charge. He probably could have killed him, or at least we beat him by more and had me run down. Depending on what I rolled for my leadership test. I don't know. There's a lot of things that could have happened. But he didn't, and I did some wounds, beat me by 1, passed my break test, and that is the end of Skaven 2. And frankly, that's where we had to end it. We've been playing since 12. It was already 8 o'clock, a little past it, so we had to really call it at this point. It's a good time to end it. We just had the 2 characters go at it, my general versus his general. It was nice to have a winner, and it was pretty decisive there. But so we'll look at the points, and I'll explain how it ran down. So after turn 3, this Dark Elves had a little bit more points than the Skaven. It was only turn 3 though, so I mean there's so much more that can happen. Let's just take a look at the board as is. Honestly, things could have easily changed. The Abomination could have taken my Witch Hag's banner and then taken the trees. My Cold Knights could have charged the Clan Rats in the rear, taken their banner, and then captured the swamp. My Spearmen could have broke at any moment, or I could have cast Fire Magic augments on them and killed the Abomination. My Executioners or the Storm Vermin easily could have won the combat depending on dice rolls. And one of the Goblin units, highly unlikely, but could have rallied, and my banner wouldn't have been lost. So this is what the game was at the end of turn 3. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment, like, and tell me what else opinions you have about how I can improve the videos. Thanks again for watching.